What's up, everybody? Welcome into a new edition of the By the Horns podcast presented by Toyota. And you know that Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand. So find yours and shine on. Toyota, let's go places. Cam Smith back with my man, 𝗵𝗔 Bulls insider 𝗵𝐶 Johnson. It's good to be back stateside. 𝗵𝐶 held things down as he always does with the By the Horns podcast and, of course, all the Bulls information. So, 𝗵𝐶, I appreciate that, my man. I was off enjoying my vacation with my wife, celebrating our 10-year wedding anniversary. It was a great time, but my first piece of work back here at home is with you doing the By the Horns podcast, and I wouldn't want it any other way. And I'm being serious on this, 𝗵𝐶. This is not cap. I'm not just saying this because we're doing this right now, because I love doing this podcast with you.
Stop lying. You know you want to go back on vacation, man.
No, I mean, if I can get some ocean views and some sand right outside my door, then yeah, that'll be great. But I don't have that because we know that Chicago's landlocked.
Well, family always first. Glad you had a good trip, and yeah, we held it down, and now we're in the throes of free agency and pretty quiet for the Bulls. Obviously, they made a trade over the weekend, which I know we're going to get into, but I keep getting the question, when is 𝗵𝗂 going to sign? And that answer has not come yet. So, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. And I have to be honest with this, man. This is why I love my wife, because she understood that, one, the draft was last week. We left the morning of the second day of the draft, so Thursday. And then also with free agency starting yesterday, she knew that I was going to have my phone out. So I was able to kind of see the Bulls picks and what was going on with the NBA and how the entire landscape really changed for the most part, especially in the Eastern Conference. But as you mentioned, this is day 2 of NBA free agency as we continue on with this Bulls team and just trying to see what's out there, where things stand with this squad as of now. But just running it back in one name that really impressed after being brought over from that 3-team deal with the Kings and the San Antonio Spurs is point guard Tre Jones, who signed a nice deal with his Bulls team, and he will be able to run it back with a group that, when you think of the front office and the deal that he signed, believed in who he is and what he can be as his team continues to build for the future, 𝗵𝐶. So when you see that move for this front office, and more so with Tre Jones to make sure that they have that depth at that guard and point guard spot, what are your thoughts on that move and just, what Tre Jones can continue to evolve in this system for Billy Donovan?
Yeah, I'm glad things are good with your wife, but you got some relationship repair with Lachlan Olbrich because you weren't there for day 2 of the draft.
I know. My bad, Lachlan. My bad, man. My apologies to the Olbrich family.
You'll make it up for him in training camp. You'll see him. Look, I tweeted it over the weekend as soon as the Okoro for Lonzo trade happened. The intel I got was this was a byproduct of this was going to be prioritizing re-signing Tre Jones in free agency. That was the first kind of signal that was going to happen. I mean, all along, most people that cover the team have been pointing to his departure, that he'd be too rich for the Bulls' blood. But if you look at that annual average value, Cam, that's a nice deal. And not only for Tre Jones in the sense that he got 3 years of security, but to me, that's a very palatable number, because that's a guy who can either start or come off the bench for you. And to me, it speaks to the comfort level that both sides found following his trade from the Spurs to the Bulls. I mean, you saw how quickly he won the trust of Billy Donovan and his coaching staff. Yeah. He shined in a starting role, but also obviously has experience coming off the bench in San Antonio. So I like it. To me, if the Giddey business eventually gets done, you've got your main guard rotation is Giddey, Kobe, Trey, and then either Kevin Huerter or Ayo, depending on what Ayo's future is with this team, which I know we're going to get into. But Tre Jones impressed me with his ability to get to the rim and finish, despite being a little bit undersized. And I know in talking to somebody close to him that he's ecstatic that this deal got done.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that, man. And you talked about the 3 years that he signed with the Bulls, $24 million. And you have a guy that is comfortable in his role, whether that as a starter when it's needed or off of the bench running that second unit. And I've always said this, even with Tre Jones, when he got into his groove with Billy Donovan's system, is that he finds ways of how to be effective offensively with his team. Now, we'll get to the defensive part in a little bit, but more so offensively and how he's able to just go backdoor, like the simple things, the fundamental things where he's able to score the basketball is such a huge sigh of relief for this team that doesn't rely on a guy or doesn't need a guy to be ball dominant. And that's what Tre Jones and just who he is as a guard, just how he thinks with his basketball IQ will be special for this team and this system, because we saw it last year. Simple backdoor cuts, or just cutting through without the basketball, or just passing and making the extra pass or getting that 𝗵cie assist for this offense to help it flow. You have a guy that doesn't need the basketball to be effective. And that's the great thing about Tre Jones within this offense. And then you throw in the defensive side of the basketball with him being able to pick up full court and just provide some kind of recognition on ball handlers, right? I mean, it's not a full-on pressure, but still you have a guy that's right there for ball handlers that makes it tough for them to get into their offensive sets and also speed them up when it comes to that shot clock. And when you can have a point guard that is going to face off against an opposing ball handler and your offense isn't getting started until maybe the 10, 9, or 8-second mark of the shot clock, it pays dividends for this Bulls team. And I think that's why you look at this deal for Tre Jones and the 3 years that he will be with this Bulls team is great to see for this group.
Yeah, I mean, he competes defensively. Obviously, he doesn't have a ton of positional size, but he competes defensively. And to your point, part of that is just shaving seconds off the shot clock by picking up full court or at least a higher pickup point. So that's something that stood out in his time here. Look, I don't want to get too far down the road, but, it's been rumored that both Kobe and Ayo, potentially could be dealt at some point. I have not heard Coby White's name one time. I've heard Ayo's name quite a bit. So the point about Trey, tying this back to Trey, is to me he's security because he can either start or come off the bench for you. Obviously, Giddey and Kobe project to be the starters. And I do think the Giddey deal will be done at some point. It just hasn't happened yet. I like the Tre Jones re-signing. And like I said, it was literally when I checked in after the Okoro trade, that's the first thing I heard was, well, re-signing Trey is a priority, and they got it done.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Let's pull up to the actual block because we've said this name, and you said this name a couple of times in the Tre Jones conversation of potential players that can be dealt, and this name being discussed more than often than Ayo Dosunmu. So we're actually pulling up on that conversation and pulling up on that block now with Ayo. And we know what Ayo is and who he is to this team and what he brings to the basketball court. And we know how his season ended last year with the shoulder surgery. But again, this is one of the guys that each year with this Bulls team has improved. And you're looking at one of the leaders of this team. But 𝗻𝗄𝗃, you just mentioned that, you've heard his name being discussed when it came to just possible new destinations. So what's the latest when it comes to Ayo and what his future potentially could hold?
Yeah, this is a little bit of a surprise to me because to me, he's one of your better two-way players. He's, to me, one of your better downhill players. He's got positional size. But I was told that re-signing Tre Jones was a priority. And obviously, Ayo's under contract for next year, so there is still a scenario in which he is back. But that guard picture is getting a little bit crowded with Jevon Carter picking up his player option and, Kobe and Giddey projecting to be kind of the backcourt of the future. So I am not hearing this internally. I've heard this from other teams that I've talked to, that Ayo's name is out there throughout the league. So I don't have any specifics in terms of what the Bulls are looking for. I just have heard that he's available for the right price from other teams that I talk to. So we'll see where it goes. Like I said, It is a little bit of a surprise to me. He's always been such a fan favorite here, obviously with his hometown ties. And to what I love about Ayo is, I've said, and you and I both talked about this, like you always try to put a ceiling on him or count him out. He's relentless. He keeps coming at you and at you and at you and proving you wrong time and time again. So I personally would be sad to see Ayo go, but we've talked multiple times, Cam, about the financial realities of needing to both re-sign him and Kobe after next season. Yeah. And while Ayo is obviously cheaper than Kobe, potentially they're trying to get out ahead of one of those to get some assets in return. And at least as of this taping, I mean, things are fluid in this league. It sounds like Kobe is longer for, the Bulls' future than Ayo. And we'll see where it goes. Everything is fluid, but that's at least what I'm hearing as of July 2nd, 1:15 p.m.
And to that note of everything being fluid, I have my alerts on for 𝗙cie anytime that he breaks something. So I just want to make sure, even though he's recording the By the Horns podcast right now, 𝗙cie is multi-talented and being able to multitask. So I'm just making sure that I'm ready just in case. And I'm sure he will break that on the show if it does happen. But getting back to Ayo, and just as you said, he's a fan favorite, hometown guy that I've covered going back to his freshman year at Westinghouse and then eventually transferred to Morgan Park. So knowing his mother, knowing his father, his entire family, and just what they mean to Chicago and what Chicago means to them, you hate to, if this does happen. Now, everybody, don't get it twisted. We're not saying that Ayo will be moved, but you just never know when it comes to the NBA. But my point is, it's the business of basketball. Right. And you would hate to see Ayo be a victim of the business of basketball. But it's just when you look at this Bulls team and trying to get assets for the future and what they're trying to build, he might be a casualty of that, because looking at that guard group, as you mentioned, 𝗙cie, Tre Jones, 3-year deal. They're working on getting and trying to get him locked down. Of course, you have Kevin Huerter here as well, Coby White. You're looking at Jevon Carter picking up that player option. If you're Ayo, and I'm not saying that he's told me this or he's thinking this, but if I'm in Ayo's position, this is Cam Smith talking. If I'm in Ayo's position, where do I fit with this team? What's my role? I mean, how many minutes will I get? But then also what my contract will be, because you have to try and think about Coby White and what you want to bring him back on and what that number looks like. So it's a lot of things that I'm sure this front office is mulling over and having deep conversations of what they will do with Ayo and what the decision they will make with him.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've never heard anything but praise for Ayo internally. I mean, he's very highly valued within the organization, but as you said, you put it well, like this is the business of basketball. And we've been talking for a while about the financial reality of both these guys, him and Coby, projecting to be unrestricted free agents next year, and Kevin Huerter for that matter.
Yeah.
So you got to get out in front of some of these situations at times and make hard decisions. They're not going to trade him just to trade him, but I've just been told for the right deal, he's available. So obviously if that happens, we will have reaction to that. But I'm going to make some good live podcasting material here and flip it on you, because we have not discussed this since you were on vacation, but I need to hear Cam Smith's real-time reaction to Isaac Okoro, the player.
You know what? When I saw the news, and this is one of the reasons why I love my wife, because when the news broke, I had my phone and I'm like, oh, wow, okay, Lonzo just got traded. And my wife was like, oh, okay, kind of a little sad about it. And she's like, who did he get traded for? This is why, again, another reason why I love my wife, because she's involved and she knows the game. But I'm like, Isaac Okoro. And she's like, from the Cavaliers? I'm like, yeah. But my initial reaction in Okoro coming over was guard/wing forward, just a wing player with size that can defend. I think that's the best thing that you get from this deal when it comes to Lonzo, is you're bringing in a guy in Isaac Okoro that can defend, that understands how to play at a high level, because we have to remember, with this Cavs team that was far ahead of every NBA team at a point in the season when it comes to their run-loss record, was guarding some of the best players in the NBA and doing a solid job at that. Now, of course, played out of the rotation with just how the Cavaliers were moving forward, and he had his injuries that went through it. But when I look at Isaac Okoro and the motivation that he has coming into this situation with this Bulls team, a veteran that can defend, I think that he's a capable three-point shot maker. That percentage has to improve. I believe he's around mid-30s. But still, this is a piece that fits into the system of Billy Donovan. Defend, get up and down, right? Make plays at the rim, but also be versatile, right? You can't just stick Isaac Okoro in the corner and just say, okay, this is what you do. This is who you are. If people who had that same notion and thought of Kevin Huerter when he came over in that trade, they're like, wait a minute, I didn't know Kevin Huerter could rebound. I didn't know Kevin Huerter could make plays for others. It's like, yeah, when you think that you have a stigma or a certain title on certain players and they shed that, then you have to be able to watch more of their games and who they are. And I think that's going to be the case for Isaac Okoro, where he will open up eyes with this Bulls fan base, where it's like, okay, well, I thought he was just a 3-and-D type of guy, but Okoro's a guy that can get to the basket and make plays at the rim. So I understand first with Lonzo and what he went through and what he's meant to Chicago. And of course, we always go back to the season with Lonzo and Zach and DeMar and how this team was number one in the East and just all those vibes. And unfortunately, him going down with that knee injury just cut his season short to 35 games, but also him working his way back to what we saw this season and what he's meant to this organization in this city. we have to give him all the love and all the flowers and respect for what he overcame, and is going to continue his career with one of the better teams, not only in the Eastern Conference, but also in the NBA and the Cleveland Cavaliers, to help shore up their second unit as a backup. But Isaac Okoro, I like the move because, again, you could be in a different situation. There's a flip side to that coin, 𝗍𝗄𝗃, and you know this. The flip side to the coin is that you don't get a player like Isaac Okoro back in that type of deal. So I like the move. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, it's good. We hadn't even compared notes yet. Here, I made this point on the Chicago lead that, like, I feel like every move this front office makes, like the resulting move catches some shrapnel and some strays because of the distrust that a certain segment of the fan base has in the front office right now. Now, look, forget, like, should have they got draft capital, etc. I'm talking about Isaac Okoro, the player. I'm exactly where you're at, man. I am higher on this guy than most, and I think Isaac Okoro is getting unfair strays because of the distrust with his front office. Here's what I would say about Isaac Okoro. Every time the Bulls play the Cleveland Cavaliers, I notice that dude. Like, you feel him. Yeah. He's got a physical presence. And, like, to me, this team lacks physicality. It lacks two-way players. And I'm not saying he's like a perfect player. I mean, obviously, he is coming off of an underachieving season. I mean, his playing time dropped to 19 minutes per game on a very good team. And then in the playoff rotation, I believe he was like the 9th or 10th player for the Cavaliers. But that said, I think a change of scenery could do this guy wonders. And I think his ability to guard and play physically, and, you know, like you said, he's got capabilities from the three-point range. His volume's got to go up a little bit. He definitely is a good transition player. He gets out in transition. So I'm excited to see what he does with a change of scenery. And look, we all knew Lonzo was going to be dealt. I am a little surprised it happened now. I thought it might happen closer to the February trade deadline in 2026, where you might have gotten a little bit more in return because the team might go, that's our piece we need for a playoff push. But if you're going to make that deal now, I don't mind Okoro at all. And I actually project him as a starter. I could be wrong there. But I'm assuming Giddey's back. I project like Giddey, White, Okoro, 𝗍𝗃, Vucevic. Maybe Kevin Huerter starts as your third and you go 3 guard, although Huerter is kind of more of a wing too. I like Okoro because he adds a defensive element. So we'll see where it goes. But I'm probably like you. I'm a little higher on this trade than some people.
𝗍𝗄𝗃, I got your back, man. You're not wrong. Okoro starts if I'm Billy Donovan. Like, you need he's one of those guys where you can look at Isaac Okoro, and as hoopers, we know this. There are certain guys that just have that look about themselves where it's just like, no, you're not getting by me. I'm going to make your night a living hell, and this is just what I do. And it's not just a look, but he also does it too with Okoro. And you add in the motivation of Cleveland, basically saying, at the end of the day, you're not good enough for us, so we're not going to play you. So he's going to have those feelings come into the season with this Bulls team and be viewed as one of the leaders because they're going to look at just his experience playing with that Cavaliers team, playing in the Eastern Conference to help some of these younger guys. And it's not like Isaac Okoro is a 30 to 35-year-old guy. He's still a young guy. I don't believe he's not even 25 yet. So he's going to be able to lean on the experience that he had with the Cavaliers, but also defensively just put that IQ to what the Bulls have in this young roster and saying, hey, this is what you do in certain situations, whether it's one-on-one or rotation, or depending on what the personnel is of how you close out or how you make this guy get into some of his weaker parts of his game. So I'm with you, 𝗍𝗄𝗃. Okoro starts. I love that starting 5. I like that starting 5, I should say, with this Bulls team. When you look at their roster of Giddey, Coby White, Okoro, Matas, and also Vooch, who's still on the roster, 𝗍𝗄𝗃. So that brings us to this point. I'm sure you've discussed this. People have tried to DM you, have edited you on X, and tried to just reach out to you in so many ways when it comes to what's the deal with Vooch? Why hasn't he been moved yet? Are the Bulls trying to see what's out there? What's the holdup when it comes to moving off of Nikola Vucevic?
It's a crowded centers market. I mean, you've already had Clint Capella change teams in free agency. We're taping this, as we mentioned, Wednesday afternoon. DeAndre Ayton's about to clear waivers in about 3.5 hours, and he's another center that will be added to the market. I believe he's either probably going to the Lakers or the Pacers, who are suddenly in the market for a center. So look, it's, Vooch has been available for the right price for a while. You heard Mark Eversley on the score with David Haw and Mike Mulligan last week say Vooch is going to be here. To me, that's semantics. I think there's better chance for him to be traded at the February 2026 deadline than this offseason. And look, Vooch is going to be professional, but at this point, it's almost like you're doing him a solid too. You got to do right by him. Like he's looking around going, hey, where did 𝗪𝗛𝗄𝗃 𝗠𝗀 go? Where did Zach LaVine go? Where did DeMar DeRozan go? It's like he's the last man standing. And you obviously need to make the right trade for your organization, but I do feel like there's a little bit of like, we need to do right by Vooch. I still think he can help a contender, but right now they have not been able to find traction on a deal.
Yeah, Vooch is definitely the Will Smith meme of him on the last episode of Fresh Prince, just looking around at the empty living room. The couches go on, all the paintings are off the wall, and he's just like, all right, I guess I'm the last man standing, like you said, KC. So, of course, all eyes will be on that situation with Nikola Vucevic. But as we kind of move forward with the podcast and going back, and again, I'm trying to play catch up a little bit, KC, because again, as I mentioned at the top, you held things down on By the Horns and wasn't able to give my thoughts on Noa Essengue. But this is a guy, when you look at what he is physically for this Bulls team and what he can bring, and we talked about Isaac Okoro and what he can do defensively and with this front office and what they envision with this young player who they drafted 12th overall is defense. We know that you're young, right? You're not 20. You haven't hit that yet. You're not even 19 yet. He's going to be 19 in a few months. But he's a guy that when you look at longevity, 3-5 years down the road, as he grows into his body, as he adds more strength with potentially 𝗏𝗏, Isaac Okoro, with the young guy, that this is a three-headed monster on the wing that will make it very tough for opposing teams to try and score. And not just to say that he's just a defensive guy. He has an offensive part of his game that is growing and will evolve as well.
Yeah. And by the way, I feel like we've reached the point in the podcast where we need to at least say Patrick Williams' name, because sometimes we forget he's on the roster.
Hey, he will charge it to our heads and not our hearts, man. Charge it to our heads, not our hearts.
I mean, like, I that's why I wanted to introduce him. Like, let's not sleep on a guy that, you know, obviously has a lot to prove and is coming off a very underwhelming season. But if he's healthy, if I'm Patrick Williams, I'm looking around going, okay, they just traded for Isaac Okoro. They just drafted Noa Essengue. I need to step it up. And maybe you get, you know, Patrick Williams taking a step this season. So let's not forget that he's on the roster. Now, that aside, you definitely project 𝗏𝗏 𝗏𝗀 and Noa Essengue like to be the front court of the future. And yes, you're talking about a guy who's just turned 20 and a guy who's not turning 19 till December. So we are a ways away. But, you know, we talked before we started taping. One thing that I really like about Noah is his length. I mean, he's a legit 6'10". He's got a standing reach over 9 feet. You see the ability to run in transition. He's obviously got to get stronger. He's obviously got to acclimate not only on the court, but off the court. He's never lived in America before. So there's a lot on his plate. So my expectations for his rookie season are pretty low.
Yeah.
But you can see the value in this pick, and it projects to be potentially an exciting front court between him and 𝗏𝗏. So I'm excited to see where it goes, just like everybody else.
And it would be a disservice to Noa Essengue for people to try and compare his rookie season with 𝗏𝗏's rookie season. And people will say, okay, well, Essengue was picked 12th, 𝗏𝗏 was picked 11th. These guys, and Essengue, if he isn't at the level or making the plays that we saw 𝗏𝗏 make, especially more so in the second half of the season, that this guy is, you know how people just love to throw this out, KC. Oh, he's a bust and this and that. Like, stop it. Just give the kid time to develop and grow. But you have to stop yourself from trying to make that comparison, because you laid it out perfectly in him just trying to assimilate to the NBA game, the physicality of it, NBA life, and being in a country that he's never lived in before, and also dealing with winter for the first time, really, a harsh winters of Chicago. So he has these points of his life now where he has to experience and has to check off the boxes, and he will get there. But if you allow him to show you, and I believe he will show that in his rookie season, of certain plays defensively where you're like, whoa, okay, I didn't know this kid had this, or offensively where he's quick to the basketball. And we saw some of his highlights where he's attacking the offensive glass and getting those tip dunks because of that reach that he has. You're saying, okay, I can see what the vision is with Essengue.
Yeah, some people don't want to hear this, and I get it. Like, they just look at like on the court. And look, they judge them strictly about professional basketball players. And I get that. I understand that. I know they get paid a lot of money. That is totally fair. But I deal with these people as human beings. So I think of things like,
yes,
this dude's like younger than my son. And like, he's coming over to America and living in another country. The Bulls put out like a tweet on their social media channel the other day where he and Lachlan Olbrich were on a boat on Lake Michigan, and Lachlan asked him when he learned English, and Noah said 2 years ago. I mean, this dude just learned English.
Yes.
Like, so I get it. I get it. You can judge him on the basketball court as fairly and as, harsh as you want to. I understand that. I'm looking at it like the dude's got a lot on his plate, and so there is a lot to this. And again, he gets paid a handsome sum. I'm not saying woe is him. I'm not saying let's break out the violins for him. He's going to live an NBA life, but I'm looking at like he's got to develop on the court. He's also got to assimilate off the court, and that's a big part of this process. But you can see the potential there. You can see the athleticism. I like the fact that even though he's skinny, he's produced in a professional league against grown men. It's not the best professional league in the world, but it's still a professional basketball league. And so we'll see where it goes. But Summer League, I'll be out there in Vegas, and I'll report back with what I see. So,
definitely. KC, make sure again that you have those alerts on for K.C. Johnson with that. And just one more note with the video that the Bulls put out with Olbrich and also Essengue, when they were sitting on the boat, and I'm looking, I'm like, wait a minute, he has on all black with the black and yellow Jordan 4s. Like, okay, yeah. And it's summertime, Chicago, and he's on a boat. Again, just give the kid grace. He's a human. This is the first time that he's been in Chicago, been in the United States, so he didn't know what the weather would be. I'm just thinking of that. So I'm like, man, I know he's got to be hot with all that black on, man. Just especially when you're out in the water, like, come on.
Exactly. My point exactly.
All right, KC, before we wrap things up, the Eastern Conference has continued to open up when it comes to free agency. Just some of the moves that we've seen. The Atlanta Hawks are really pushing a lot of their chips in and trying to make their run for East that is wide open. The Orlando Magic, we've seen the moves that they've been able to make. And you look at the Milwaukee Bucks with them bringing in Miles Turner. So I'll just kind of end it here with this question for you. And obviously you can give your own thoughts into anything that's piqued your interest. But of the teams in the East, who's impressed you more with the strategic moves that they've made to try and position themselves to be in the NBA Finals?
To me, it's clearly the Bucks. And look, I love how like people are saying, "Oh man, when the Giannis run is over, the Bucks are going to crater so bad." It's like you can't have it both ways. Like, I respect the hell out of John Horst and that ownership group and that management group saying, you know what, we've got a generational talent and a generational player, and we owe him everything we can to try to maximize his window. You're starting to see Denver do that a little bit with their offseason moves. They've had a nice offseason, but this is the third time that, and this to me is by far the most unexpected. The Jrue Holiday trade was one, and the Damian Lillard trade was another, and now this one was out of left field, man. No one had Miles Turner going from the Pacers to their Bucks on their free agency bingo card. No. And credit to John Horst and Miles Turner's agent, Evanston's very own Austin Brown, graduate of Evanston Township High School, my alma mater. Austin Brown got some business done here, man. And
yes, he did.
The shocking transaction, especially given how bitter that rivalry was. I mean, the Pacers have eliminated the Bucks 2 years in a row in the playoffs. Those franchises do not like each other. So that to me is by far. And I think some of these value moves they've made, getting like Gary Trent Jr. back and adding Gary Harris on a minimum. I'm not saying the Bucks are going to come out of the East, but I respect the hell out of what they're doing to try to satisfy Giannis. Yeah,
definitely. I'm with you, KC, and also Kevin Porter Jr. re-up with the Bucks as well, so he'll be back with them. And when I initially saw Brook Lopez going to the Clippers, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I believe it's time for Lopez to look elsewhere with his career. But again, I didn't know that it was going to be Miles Turner filling that center spot for the Milwaukee Bucks. But then also with their decision of waiving Damian Lillard, he's still going to get his money, I believe, like 22.5 per year for the next 5. I could be wrong on that, but
that's right.
So somewhere around the number. All right, thanks, KC. But it was just like, all right, you waive Dame, you bring in Miles Turner. Oh, this Milwaukee Bucks team is not going quietly into the night to your point, with Giannis and trying to maximize that generational talent. So this is a team that you can count them out, and you can look at the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I mentioned the Atlanta Hawks and the Orlando Magic, and some people are kind of giving a little love to the Detroit Pistons and them trying to take another step into next year. The Knicks, with the moves that they were able to make with 𝗵𝗀 Yabusele and also Jordan Clarkson. According to reports, Mike Brown will be their new head coach. And you start to think about those teams, but you know that Giannis is looking at all of the moves in the East, and probably one of the reasons why he wanted to stay in the East, just like, all right, I will make sure that when we get to the spotlight, we'll be able to shine. So kudos to the Bucks and John Horst and that management group and that staff, what they're able to pull off this NBA offseason and free agency that continues to be fluid. This is only day 2, everybody. So I'm sure by the time that we release this pod, shout out to our producer, 𝗵𝗂 that there are going to be more moves that have happened across the league that we'll bring into another conversation for the next edition of the By the Horns podcast, which will be next week, unless we need to drop an emergency pod and the news involves the Chicago Bulls. And when it happens, you know you can hear it first from the one and only 𝗻𝗄cie Johnson, and you can hear it with me, Cam Smith, on the By the Horns podcast. But we appreciate everybody for tapping in, as you always do. Thank you for your time. And you know that By the Horns podcast is presented by Toyota. Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand. So find yours and shine on. Toyota, let's go places. All right, take care, everybody. See you soon.